I don't think you want to lead with, it's all chaos and we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out as we go. That obviously is not a big confidence builder. I think what you want to do is confidently express a vision for how we're going to solve a series of problems. And part of that vision includes a plan to adjust for things that are unexpected. There is a whole bunch of content in the enterprise that people shouldn't even know exists.
We're waiting for the industry to catch up to us.
You're talking about the empowerment of the individual over the empowerment of the establishment. When we talk to the group of people that's out there, the tribe of people in the records management space, content management space, and all that kind of thing, we shine a light on the industry problems and what's possible. And generally they agree very quickly. Yeah. But they don't go there themselves because they don't know how to solve the problem. So I think there's a lot of room for just talking about, not from a single vendor perspective, buy Shinydocs and we'll solve problems, but from an idea of a plurality. How do you bring all this together to actually solve the problem?
That's at the core of why the way you communicate is so effective, I think. And I think that's what resonates with people, is that it's not strictly coming at it from the perspective of, I'm the Shinydocs CEO and I want to sell you some software. I'm an industry expert in this area and I love talking about these ideas, and we would love to help you with these ideas generally. And by the way, as a side effect of this, Shinydocs is one of the companies that can help you do that. But the best speakers in any given area are not necessarily there to sell you something. They will sell you something, but they're there to talk about what they're passionate about and what's interesting to them. So I think that's, again, back on the authenticity piece.
I think so. So Elon Musk is not known for being a good speaker. He mumbles and hums and ahs a lot. But I love listening to him because he's not trying to sell me a car or whatever. He's selling a vision, which is kind of inarguable. I really like the idea of, if we want to realize this science fiction future of people living on Mars and stuff like that, somebody needs to push that, and nobody else is, so I'm going to push that. I like it. Mm-hmm. And I think our approach to content services is kind of the same thing, is that we've been ignoring 90% of our content because we've just never had a good solution. Now that good solutions are coming to the market, we need a leader, somebody to just shine a light on that.
If you think of some of our customers and the situations that they find themselves in, nobody wants to stick their neck out, in their careers, in their jobs, and say, I've got an idea. I'm going to take something up to my leadership team that's going to revolutionize the industry. Nobody does that. They either have something sort of assigned to them, or they bring the idea forward to say, it seems like we could manage documents better or something, rather than, I want to revolutionize how this is done. And that's a shame, but it doesn't mean we can't inform that group of people who are involved in making those decisions, and we can't equip them with some better approaches to solving these traditionally unsolvable problems, or the problems that traditional vendors haven't really solved, by forcing people into content repositories and monolithic apps and things.
I agree, and I think it's unfair to expect that when we when we do these things, we're going to get engaged with a program manager or somebody like that that's been tasked to solve a particular problem. And I get how the salespeople are like, hey, I want to sell up, so let me sell my widget to the CEO or to the board or something like that. But it's program managers just saying, I'm not putting my neck out to do that. Right. I want to just show me how you solve my problem. And what I like about what we've been doing with our customers is that when we solve the problem, it creates a dashboard that shows the magnitude of the problem and what can be done about it. So when you create this dashboard and you get this understanding of the content, then that goes to the leadership, that goes to the board, and they see the scope of the challenge and what can be done about it. And then that progresses it. So I like our wedge better because the act of solving that program manager's problem is the same act that is going to expand their thinking, as opposed to, here, buy this wedge piece of software, and then
Right.
I'm going to just try to sell you more software as we go.
Yeah, and the dashboarding thing is so interesting in a way, and I think it's terrific that this has become a very hot topic and trendy topic, in the enterprise. But what spills out of the dashboards are areas for improvement, and areas where companies, extending this back to the agile conversation that we've had recently, the dashboards expose areas where companies can iterate on their own challenges. If you look at this as a long game and something that you don't do as a discrete project that has a beginning and an end, it's something you do for forever, infinitely. The dashboard exposes areas that you can tackle next. And when you've tackled that area, you tackle the next thing. And when you've tackled that area, you tackle the next thing. And it's not a failing to do things iteratively. In fact, I would argue it's the best way to do things. Tackle a problem that will increase the value of your teams, the value of your stakeholders, your whole ecosystem. When you've tackled that one, tackle the next one. And dashboards, especially in the way that we're envisioning them around total data understanding, really expose all these opportunities, for a business to recognize areas for improvement and areas where they could be doing better.
Yeah, it's neat because I love metaphor, and not everybody loves metaphor, and that's okay. But I recently read an essentialism book, which was something that was recommended to me by a business coach. I'm like, okay, sure, I'll try it on. And it is neat that we often, as managers, you think of yourself as an essentialist because you make the tough decisions and you put people on the highest priority thing. And that is a kind of subset of essentialism. You focus on one thing and you do it really well, and that's fine. But what was interesting as I was researching this topic, and we're starting with this book and then seeing what other resources were out there, was this whole concept of explore a lot, gather a lot of information. The essentialist doesn't just make the tough decision and go. They're actually extremely well informed about all of the different possibilities that are out there, the risks associated with them, and it helps you then choose what is going to be your highest yield. So I think if we look at the dashboards and that type of information gathering, the ability for a system to go out, find everything, and then show you, that's kind of doing the essentialist background work for you and availing the highest priority item with some evidence, as opposed to a smart leader just making that tough decision and off you go.
Or going on hunches, which is
Totally.
in some ways worse, right? That's exactly right. And we've seen this with some of our customers already, where what is revealed by our analysis of the data is not necessarily what the customer thought was going to be the case. Right. And from these situations that expose themselves, that become apparent, the priorities and the urgency of one issue may go up. Which is great, because then the leadership of an organization is better equipped to make the right decisions at the right time and have better outcomes.
And I do run into this sometimes where people act on their hunches, but then they got budget based upon those hunches, and then they got approval to assign people to the project based upon those hunches, and then you show them that their data was wrong, but they do have a good team, so let's work on the highest priority item. So they have to mask it, package it up. We all know that we're actually solving this bigger problem, but we need to pretend that we're solving this because that's what got me my budget and all these other things. And that is where's the failure in business on that? Like, how did we even get there? Because I think I get it, but I'm curious as to why there isn't a feedback loop in that decision making, saying, guess what? Or when I get assigned the project, I should get a discovery phase that confirms and then identifies the best utilization of resources, as opposed to I'm paying your team $500,000 to get this exact outcome that you described to me, and if not, then the team goes away. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of one of the sort of fundamental software truths that has been, I don't know whether you agree or not, but one of the fundamental software truths that seems to have been true for my entire career is that end users will use a system in ways that you've never anticipated, that you hadn't figured they would use it for X, and they end up discovering this way of using software that wasn't anticipated, and in some ways in really revolutionary ways, and in ways that are very compelling for them. And I feel like it's almost the same thing in the process that you described, where the outcomes that were originally intended, or whatever mechanism or process brought the software into an enterprise, end up not being the reasons for why it's effective or not effective. And I think a lot of that stems from how internal stakeholders pitch a need. We have a need to solve X or Y, and then on the outcome side of it, they're not following up and circling back and measuring against those outcomes. Instead, there's sort of a soup or a stew of, is it broadly helping people get their job done? Are users broadly adopting the solution? Does it meet X or Y compliance goal? And then maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. And eventually, the businesses have to decide whether they stick with it or don't. Now, what's challenging on the enterprise side for companies is that some of these solutions are so sticky that you're locked in, right? You're locked in for a good amount of time. It's not just because of the amount of money that's been put into these solutions, but also just they're sticky themselves. And then I think a lot of stakeholders in these companies feel trapped, and that ties right back into our story around managing data where it lives, and bringing our solutions to the data rather than moving it around all over the place.
It's almost like it should be part of the vetting talk track with somebody. Is, do you stick with that because it's truly sticky?
Yep.
Or do you stick with it because of a sunk cost fallacy?
Right.
And I know that we have asked that kind of question of people before, and it really causes them to go,
Yeah.
And you know what? It's okay. If it's the sunk cost fallacy, you look at that and you go, okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
But just know it. Knowing is better than not knowing. What was interesting along this lines of kind of the evolution of you get assigned a task in a team and then you start exploring. That we had a customer that, or still have a customer that they had senior executive who not really involved other than seeing dashboards and getting some outcomes, which is fantastic. And then the project visionary, not the project champion, the person running the project, but the visionary was the one who identified, okay, we could possibly get these outcomes. I'm going to talk to the senior executive, we'll get the funding, and off we go. And then the project champions were assigned to it. And so we're getting some good outcomes. And we did shift gears quite a bit when we discovered what the customer was really willing to do internally, capable of doing for all sorts of requirements, security requirements and other things. They had to move slowly in certain areas, but they really wanted to move aggressively in other areas. So we were feverishly transforming things. Like they would come back and say, well, we can't do that because of the security issue. And we're like, well, if we coded around that security issue and showed you what we did and then got that approved, could we go ahead? And we're like, well, I guess so.
Right.
And what was neat is the champions loved it because it seemed agile.
Sure.
In getting their outcome.
Yep.
And the senior, like the very senior executive, didn't really care. He saw progress, but the sandwich in the middle, where things break, is in the middle. Is our visionary was looking at this going, I feel like I'm at risk here because I bought a solution,
right.
But now we're kind of inventing a new solution based upon the one that I bought. And he took that to a senior executive,
right,
with caution, with worry. Should we be worried about this? And what was really cool, and I think it's just, we got fortunate that the senior executive was forward thinking and more modern or contemporary. He gave the feedback of, wouldn't that be fantastic if every one of our vendors did that? That when you run up a brick wall of something that's internal to us or a limitation of their software, they just went at no additional charge. They just went, we got this. And they made it work rather than, sorry, you bought the software and assumed all risk. Yeah, sorry, you got to figure it out. Or pay us a lot of PS to just make a one-off for you. It wasn't our approach. And it was neat watching this visionary just change his way of thinking. And then all of a sudden he became an inventor as well, going, hey, maybe we could do this. Let's try on. And we ended up trying on a bunch of things. And the ultimate successes that we got only 50% of the ultimate successes that we got were the things in the original ideas.
Right.
Other 50% was brand new and more transformative to their business than they ever thought possible.
This links back to, what we were riffing on before about the dashboards, in that I think in a lot of cases you don't know what you don't know. You go into this kind of work, especially if you're envisioning a situation where you're going to explore all of the data in your enterprise, which we already know is dark for a lot of people or unknown. And you don't know what you don't know until you get there. And there are going to be roadblocks that come up and issues that come up as you go. Now, obviously, the goal is not to enter into a project with, the objective of finding as many roadblocks as you can. Ideally, you want it to go as smoothly as possible. But the reality is that that's never going to be the case, that there are going to be roadblocks. And that if you are an organization who responds well to that and iterates cleanly and crisply on those things, I think you can have a ton of success. It just may not even be the success that you had originally planned for. It might be something else altogether. And I think we're really well equipped to behave that way because it's part of our DNA. And the more we can bring others along to that way of getting things done, the better. But that is a tough one because not everybody's comfortable with that kind of pivoting and iterative development.
I know what you mean. Is there more power when somebody says to you, I thought you said that you were going to do this. Right. If you go, yeah, I'm sorry. Or I think is there more power in saying, you're right. I discovered 6 other things. You're right. I was wrong before and I want to do this now. And it's amazing. And here's the amazing outcome. Just owning it and transitioning. Doesn't that just, even though you're somehow pegging down as far as your previous predictive ability, aren't you pegging way up as far as your impenetrability of demonstrating that you have nowhere to go?
Yeah. I think you're onto something there. Like I was saying, I don't think you want to lead with, it's all chaos and we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out as we go. That obviously is not a big confidence builder. I think what you want to do is confidently express a vision for how we're going to solve a series of problems. And part of that vision includes a plan to adjust for things that are unexpected. A security issue pops up, a set of data that we thought looked like X turns out to not look like X at all. And in fact, a set of data that we thought was really not relevant and interesting is incredibly relevant and interesting, and we need to take a detour. I think being open to that is part of what Shinydocs is able to deliver on for a lot of our customers, and it really does require a little bit of cooperation and collaboration, I think, with our customers to come along on that journey with us, because we're going to at times find things in the data that were unexpected.